Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to the first video of 2023. And we are starting off with a really cool piece of gear. And now, without further ado, let's jump right into the Trident Audio High-Low filter. This is a really cool piece of gear that can be a simple high-low filter or it can be a creative tone shaper. And I want to show you a variation of all of that today. As the name suggests, it's a high and a low filter. So you have a low cut and you have a high cut. Each filter has an identical set of controls. The low filter goes from 15 hertz up to 16 kilohertz. The high filter goes from 75 hertz up to 24 kilohertz. So you have some overlap there, which allow for some really cool creative possibilities. You also have the option of a 12 or 24 dB per octave slope. That's the straightforward part of these filters, and they work great. They are really smooth and they sound fantastic. But where the fun begins is with the resonance control. This creates a resonant peak wherever the cutoff frequency is set. And you can go all the way up to a 12 dB boost, which means you can do some pretty creative things with that. But where things get really interesting is the track signal function. And this enables the filter to be used for dynamic noise reduction. So say for instance you had a low hum or a low rumble that you wanted to get rid of. You can enable the track signal function. In this mode, the cutoff frequency tracks dynamically the low frequency content of the music, with the frequency control setting the frequency to which the filter will open up in the absence of any low frequency content. Now that means you could kill a rumble, or if you had some hiss from tape or some sort of line noise or something on the top, you could mitigate that. But when you use the track signal function in conjunction with the resonance control, you turn the high-low filter into an instrument in and of itself. And that's where you can get really creative. So what I want to do is run through a few different scenarios. I spent all last night, like 3 or 4 hours, just pulling up sound after sound and playing with this thing. And I've narrowed it down to 4 or 5 different sources that I want to demonstrate to show everything this can do. So we'll start off with some drums, and I'm just going to run through all the functions of the filter just so you get an idea of what it sounds like and what all the features do. All right, so you can kind of hear when you start playing around with that resonance control and the track signal function, there's a lot of creative ways you could use that. On the drums, one thing I like about the low filter, when you just cut off maybe somewhere between 40 and 100 or down, you know, below 100, and then you use the resonance control along with that track function, you get this really cool sub. It's an EQ without actually turning an EQ on, and it makes it just big and huge. Maybe it's too much, but I kind of like what it does there. Now let's take a listen to this on some heavy guitars. I have a song with drums, bass, and double track guitars. Let's take a quick listen. All right, now let's just listen to the guitars, and there's a couple things I want to do to clean up the bottom and reshape the top. First thing, it's a little boomy on the bottom and kind of flabby. Now let's see if we can add a little bit of that power back. But keep it tight. This is one of those times where that resonance control really comes in handy, because you can clean up the bottom. And like, these guitars don't sound bad, but that the bottom is a little bit flabby. And especially with the toms and the bass on here, I feel like it gets a little muddy and harder to hear the guitar. So we can knock off some of that and then use that resonance control to add some of that weight back and keep the guitars tight. So now let's look at a couple ways to shape the top end. The first being, let me see if I can take a little of that fizz out. Let's hear that in the track. Definitely a little bit tighter. It kind of separates itself from the drums and the bass a little bit. But what if you like the fuzz? This is where we can have a little bit of fun with this high filter. It's effectively an EQ without being an EQ, and using the tracking signal along with the resonance control, you can get some real exciting sound coming out of the guitar, especially with a heavy distorted guitar where there's lots of fun textures to work with inside the sound already. Time to have fun with the synth. This is another source that I think the high-low shines on. I'm gonna something similar with this that I did on the guitars. You can hear some of the notes in the low end, the sub, sound like they're bottoming out just a little bit, just kind of hitting hard. I'm gonna see if I can even those out and make the low end a bit more consistent through the whole pattern. Ooh, a little much. I like this though. A little tighter too. All right, now we're really gonna have some fun. You can do some cool things with sweeps on these. Kind of a plain sounding synth here. The high cut, this really shines. This is a great way to take your in-the-box synth sounds and add some really cool character. You could always print this back in and run a bunch of different things through it. But I love how you can hear the filter, especially once you turn the tracking function on, the filter kind of moving just a little bit. So it makes it feel more alive. When it's off, it's just kind of... It's not the worst sound I've ever heard, but that sounds more alive, more exciting, more like it's dancing around. And you could treat the left and right sides different too. This is another example of how you can use the high-low to bring some life and excitement to your sounds.
Don't worry, I'm not going to sing. I would not do that to you. I just want to demonstrate how easy it is to use the high-low, specifically the low cut, to get rid of a 60 cycle hum or a ground hum or a rumble. This is something I hear so often on some of these sports radio that I listen to, especially when they leave the studio and they go out on location. I can't tell you how many times I've listened to a ground hum for an entire show. I want to show you how good the high-low is at eliminating that. And what is that? This is that. Make sure you have headphones on or listening through good speakers. If you're listening through your phone, you're not going to hear this. But imagine having this hum go through an entire broadcast. Here's what we're going to do. First off, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to use the 24 dB slope, and I'm going to turn the track signal on. And I'm just going to start moving the frequency up until it's gone. And I'm watching my meters over here. Still there a little. I'm going to go up a little higher. I'm only going to go up to where I don't hear it anymore. And according to my meters, let's see. Gone. And the voice still sounds pretty good. Yeah, you've lost a little bit of bottom, but at this point now we could actually take an EQ and give a little bit of chest back in there without having that horrible, horrible hum. So the high-low, really effective, really fast at eliminating unwanted noise in your signal.
I want to do one more drum demo, this time on a minimally mic'd kit. And I'm going to use the high-lows to reshape the overhead mics to add a little extra thickness and see if I can get a little better articulation out of the cymbals. And here is our drum sound. Here's just the overheads. Let's see what we can do here. That adds a little bit of bottom. Let's see how that works with the rest of the drums. Take All right, that thickens that up a little bit, kind of nice, without making it, you know, too boomy sounding. Let's see what we can do with our top ends. Overheads only. Okay. All right, whole kit. All right, I'm going to bring in the whole song. Start with the high-low off. Let's hear it. I'm really impressed with how well this, EQs without actually being an EQ. Now, it is easy to overdo, and because that, the tracking function is tracking the source it's going into it, it can move a little bit. So I think on drums, if you had some very complex cymbals and they were getting used a lot, I think you could start to hear some, sway and movement, which could be really cool, and it could be overkill. But in this case, on this kit, I was probably my Paiste 602s, and I'm not going crazy on them. It's neat how the high-low brings out a little bit of articulation, gives it a little bit of life that it didn't have before, but it doesn't sound like I EQ'd. It just kind of gives better articulation. And then the low filter, using, again, the tracking function and the resonant control, adds some thickness without getting boomy, which I think is pretty cool. So depending on what you're doing, you could use it just a little bit. It could be, the high-low could be a great utility filter, but you could also use this as a creative tool, almost an instrument, to completely reshape a sound, kind of like we did with the synth. So it's really just limited by your imagination and what source you put through that. Thank you all for joining me on this video. Happy New Year. Looking forward to a lot more videos and a lot of live streams, everybody. Keep recording. See you soon.